Respected senior experts in the room, the organizers, and my dear audience, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to present this wonderful topic, which is one of my favorites when it comes to discussion in seminars and conferences like this, or even on a one-on-one basis. So as you already know, attackers aren't static. If they aren't static, then what's the opposite word? They are certainly dynamic, right? So let's take a deeper look as to what this topic takes us into, predominantly covering what actually a hacker or attacker would be thinking and what we need to do to be a step ahead of them. So this is basically the agenda, the rise of an insider threat, which is a new concept. We always knew about the outsider threat, but there are insider threat. The cost of breaches, of course, a lot of discussion has been happening since morning on that. What's the context of security? We keep on talking about security. There are multiple angles to security, but we need to put a context to it. And how we use that context into a proper approach, a streamlined approach of identity-powered security, and the benefits of the analytics approach, which is again the core aspect of our topic. That slide is about the introduction, which was very well read out by our friend here. Thank you so much for that. So, if the attackers are not static, you already said they are dynamic, right? Business users are taking technical decisions, right? They're doing it as a part and parcel of their day job or life. But attackers are really very smart and they think dynamic. Okay, if we have a system in place this morning, they would have already got ways and means to break that by afternoon or by evening. That's the kind of attackers we are looking at. So they are evolving. These attackers are evolving on a daily basis. I hope we don't see in a few years' time a time wherein we see that they are evolving on an hourly basis, by which time we should put system in place which crushes them even in their thoughts, right? So many of you who are fans of Dan Brown would have read this novel, Digital Fortress, where there's a supercomputer called Translator. When that, at the last part of the novel, when there's a climax, that supercomputer actually goes down, okay? And the chief moderator or the chief administrator, to give the management a perspective of how attackers are giving, he puts an AV on that, a video basically, where the sharks are pinging and trying to access data into the core aspect of it, or our core data. That was static. That novel was written more than 10 years back. That's not the case as we speak today. These dynamic people, they just don't keep on pinging the firewall. They don't keep on pinging the security configurations of profiles. They are very smart. We need to be much more smarter to these guys who are evolving on a daily basis, right? So these guys are not just any malicious users or negligent users. Neither are they careless users. The outsiders are abusing insider credentials. I'm sure everyone in this room agrees to that. Either they would have heard it or they would have experienced it themselves. If you have experienced it, I know what you would have been through, right? So when we talk about that particular activity, hacking, attacking, what do we call it, the unpleasant words, they can go undetected for many, many days and months before something happens. Either a miracle happens or somebody's really attentive. I'm going to discuss about that as well. So when we talk about aspects like this, a first thing which comes to mind is social engineering, right? I hate the word social engineering being associated with a negative concept here. I would have probably liked it if it was social disaster or something like that, but engineering is a very, very robust and technically advanced term, right? That's my personal thought on it. So these days we have technology on touch, the iPads, the phones, and all of that. But if that technology gets a human touch, on the negative perspective, we have social engineering happening, right? So if there is an attack happening, if there is unauthorized access which is being given, that is something we can take a look at it. But social engineering, how do you beat this demon? It's very difficult, right? So it's like, as I said, the human touch, or sip of coffee or lunch or anything, or using human emotions or blackmailing, any such aspects. Social engineering has got many, many deeper negative concepts to it, which is very difficult to even discuss or come up with. So when that happens, when social engineering creeps into anybody's data or system, disaster strikes, and strikes big time. And we are talking about, when it comes to Indian terms, crores and crores of money, and even in terms of dollars, it can run into thousands and lakhs of dollars, right? So these are just some of the headlines which I just picked a snapshot and put it on the slide here. One is a very famous case of a social engineering being used in Chennai, wherein there was a service provider who made friends with the staff of a bank and got to know the credentials of a dormant account and changed the address maliciously, okay? And then made the debit card being delivered to that address and then changed it back to the original address. And some 49 lakhs or 50 lakhs was already stolen before the bank got to know what's happening. Then they got to know, they woke up, then they did investigation, but damage was done. Reputation did take a hit when headlines hit the day of the like. So, and the one more case is Office of Personnel Management in US, wherein the former director testified to the Congress that there was an attack. I use the word former, right? So that makes you think that there was a loss of job to the executive. The Assistant Secretary of US Homeland Security for Cyber Security did say that that attack was going on for days together and it went undetected. And when they went deeper, they got to know that social engineering might have been the culprit there, or might have been the reason for that. But here, if an executive loses job, it makes rooms into the headlines and all of that is there. But what about that team that executive would have set up? Hundreds of people who would have followed the decisions which that executive would have taken and put things into streamline and would be working well for the business to do well. Everything takes a hit. It's like a chain reaction. What happened? Social engineering was the culprit which made these things happen. Talking about one more case, Anthem, right? Where the attackers got, through their own means, got access into the database and started stealing the credentials, till a very attentive DBA saw that a query was being executed and his ID was tagged to it. If that guy was on leave that day, or if that guy was not attentive, we don't know how much more damage would have happened here and when it would have got detected. So manual intervention is something which we cannot be highly dependent on because these attackers are, as I said in the beginning, are evolving, right? So we need to put an automative system or controlled by an experienced person who can see to it that any attempts, forget attack happening, any attempts to make an attack also are not successful. We have to be at that level of maturity. Cost of breaches, I'm sure all of these topics have been touched upon since morning. Reputation loss is something which anybody who have undergone the pain would love to get away with it. If that person works for that, let's say a bank which underwent an attack, and he happens to meet somebody in a marriage and he says, I work for XYZ bank. Oh, you are the guy who recently, there was a fraud in your bank, right? It gets tagged along with it even though he's in sales and marketing. That reputation loss is really, really very sticky to get rid of. Breach costs, we had that point in the panel also, paying those investigators to see what happened and doing a damage control, all of that. IP loss, again, we do not know how much of data would have got stolen and how it would have got misutilized and how it would have gone to the competition also. That's again something you cannot put a value to it. Compliance penalties, yes. All the certifications which you would have been proudly showcasing on a notice board below the vision document, all of that takes a hit. Those guys say that we want to withdraw certification, can be ISO or PCI compliance or Sarbanes-Oxley compliance, all of those takes a hit. Executive careers have already spoken about it, so more or less that point is touched. Yeah, so I was talking about a system-oriented practice in place, which is not highly dependent on manual intervention, but you do need skilled people to run those systems. And the fact of the day, which is there on the slide right now, shows that it takes 3 to 6 months to fill those gaps, to hire experienced, skilled people to manage those threats or manage a system which is susceptible to threats, right? And 10% do not get filled at all. And the attackers look at this 10% where people are absent, or one person is doing 3 people's job, and the third job might be something where he's not attentive, and they try to creep in there. But that's the fact of the industry which we are staring at. So, talking about security as a concept, context, as I said in the beginning, right? We keep on talking about security. What's the concept? Context, sorry. Let's say that a person is using a particular device to access an enterprise application. There has to be a system in place which says who is this person, what is he or she using to access what, right? And from where? Are they using a public Wi-Fi? Nowadays we have Wi-Fi in public places in Delhi and many other places, right? His boss calls up and he says that I need this data, I need last month's achievements or whatever you are going to close as on today. I want that data because I have a call with my manager. He's in the station going for a holiday, and he has to get onto the Wi-Fi. So the system admin or the security process in place should be such that he should feel free to access that Wi-Fi and send in the management information system, whatever needs to be going, so that it can go to forecast, it can go to the shareholders tomorrow, you never know. So this cannot impact that, because if forecast goes wrong, then the share market crashes. So you see how they're interlinked, and there can be a complex situation. So putting all these context all this contextual information in one particular logical form. There can be many aspects what you can see here. It can be practices, which are regular practices of password resets, privileged identity access, user monitoring, all of that. If you put all of them and put it in a proper parsing analytical engine to come out with some sensible, intelligent information which can lead to a very good secure practice to see to it that all of these attacks or susceptibility to attacks and those liabilities coming with it are totally taken care. It can be identity governance and administration, it can be user monitoring or access control, and best real-time data and real-time reporting and reviews. Not like, when I say real-time reporting and reviews, it's not like those red lights and green lights which are there on the head of the overhead monitors, wherein you get into alert mode only if there is a red. It's not like that. So you have a very different kind of dashboards with different roles looking at it, right from the system admin up till the CIO. Okay, everybody has access to the relevant data through these dashboards which are coming into that analytical engine, right? So decisions are hard to take. Everyone would agree with me, more so the managers in the room. Decisions are really hard to take. But if you have intelligent information in your hand, decision taking becomes easy and accurate, right? So this kind of an approach, what we call it as identity powered security approach, or the recommended approach, talks about bringing revolution into the system. Those guys are evolving, but we are already evolved. We are smart people. We have to bring in the revolution. If those are still the monkeys who are undergoing evolution, the attackers, we are already people who have evolved and the proper human beings who are in control of the system to run the system safely and perfectly well. So we minimize the rights, We enforce access controls and also monitor user activity. A deeper concept into that, you can see from the presentation, analytics is core part of it. Everything you are analyzing, all that information which is coming through, you are analyzing. It's not just going through the screen or the monitor or the reports or emails just like that, right? So identity governance and administration, access management, authentication, secure user monitoring is the approach. Let's take a little deeper look into that. When you say minimize rights, it's like give the least privileged principle, enforce that. You do not break your head into seeing who is trying to access what. For example, if a sales guy, as I was telling you, if a sales guy is trying to access a monthly report, then that is fine. If that guy is trying to draw the entire year's data, is trying to take a backup of all the customer database, then that is something which is very, very doubtful. Then we do not need human beings sitting behind and monitoring. The system should come into place to either block it or raise an alert or do whatever which is required, a particular proper action at that point in time. Enforcing access control, yeah, single sign-on experience is something which everyone would agree. Even I had a gentleman in the booth who was talking about a single sign-on which can give access to the CRM, to the email, and also to any of the analysis reports or so on and so forth. So here it can be BYOD or multi-factor authentication. All this concept you have to put into what we call as access management and authentication. Secure user monitoring, as I just said, if the activity is fine, then it's okay. If it is compromised, as I say, somebody is taking a backup of the entire customer database, then that is not a normal activity. So having a proper secure user monitoring system in place which can alert when such an attempt is being made, whether if Naveen is trying to do it, whether it's Naveen doesn't usually do it. Is he trying to, if my work timings is from 9 to 6, if I'm trying to take that data at 3 a.m., then that's not normal. So the system needs to bring in that alertness when such a kind of an activity happens. I was requested to share some of the use cases. This was a global telecom outside India, wherein they had unauthorized access for the distributors and partners to credentials, important credential to important data, right? And that they were not getting certain certifications, and PCI and Starbucks was taking a big hit. We were able to put a proper governance in place and a proper workflow-oriented request system, which managed the entire access system for the outsiders, so that they can be given access based on the usage and their privileges. Another case was a major US airline, wherein data was open to anybody who registered with that particular name, Mr. X at usairline.com. Anybody could have access to that such data that it could give information on reservations, flight schedules, their frequent flyer programs, wherein that data, if it goes out, then it can lead into havoc. So we were able to give them privileged account management system with which all their application and OSs got the right people using it, accessing it. Keeping in place, they had a security leverage, which was kept in place for them to use it. We didn't rip apart the security profiles because that was actually a good practice. So, benefits of this particular analytical approach: efficient, intelligent decision making, can rapidly identify and eliminate those threats, not wait till all hell breaks loose, and bring in some innovative practices into the existing personnel. For example, they should be made to attend certain programs wherein they are made aware as to how social engineering can happen. How a guy who wants to misutilize social engineering or utilize social engineering, what are his intentions? Or they can be told to give an ID. If that guy goes and uses that ID, that means that we know his intentions are bad. Such workshops, programs need to be conducted to educate the existing personnel so that they can perform better, right? At the end of it, Simhavalokana is a Sanskrit word. It tells about a lion when it's walking, it always keeps looking backwards, right? It takes 10 steps, it looks backwards to see if there is any threat, if there is another lion or something else trying to attack it. So anybody who's associated with security, the IT security, security of the digital assets, need to be that lion to see to it that every 10 steps you go further, take a look backward to see if there is any threat and kill it then and there itself, right? So that brings me to the end of the presentation.